Fall has hit us here in southeastern Wisconsin, Zone 5B, and it has hit us hard. But despite these conditions, how are our fall crops doing? Are they thriving or dying? Also in today's episode, we're going to be giving you a little bit of a tour and sharing some incredible stories that we've experienced throughout the year here in the backyard garden. There's a lot of stuff, you're not going to want to miss it, so stay tuned. Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ripley. What we do here is very simple. We build your passion for growing through simple yet effective and affordable means of increasing your harvest and bringing more beauty to your gardens at home. We grow a little bit of everything. You can see the annual Dahlias that we've got growing over here. We've got big mammoth sunflowers, Pikes Peak sunflowers, apple trees, pear trees, all of these vegetable gardens back here, 9 of them in fact, and chickens as well. We do a little bit of everything, and that's what we're trying to share with you through our family's journey, our expedition to our homestead. So if that sounds interesting to you, I encourage you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. All right, let's take a look at our fall crops. We've got radishes, beets, and kohlrabi growing, and I think they're doing just fine. We've got 2 beds here. That one is primarily all kohlrabi because I love kohlrabi more than anybody I know. And then we've got beets and radishes in here. And you can tell that we've got a couple of other plants in this bed as well. These are our okra that we're letting go to seed so we can grow the seed next year. As you can see, those pods are quite big, and then this is like one that you would harvest, actually a little bit smaller than that. But these are going to be so woody right now, they're not harvestable. These are for the seeds. That's how you get okra seeds. That's how you eat the okra. All right, this first bed here, all of the radish seedlings are only a few inches tall right now at this point. Beet seedlings are about the same as well. Most of these crops have a harvest time of about 45 to 60 days, and I believe we are maybe 4 weeks into their growth. So it does look like they have a long way, but keep in mind, we're at the end of September. We expect to have frost towards the middle or end of October for sure, but even with a frost, these plants will do just fine. They can withstand a pretty heavy frost and then continue growing. And in fact, they really like growing in colder weather more than warm weather. So I am still hopeful. We were off to maybe a 2 week late, about 2 weeks late of a start because the whole season was pushed behind due to our weather. But now it seems like fall is coming pretty quick on us. So we do have a little bit of a conundrum, but I think the plants will do just fine. I do think that we're going to be able to get a harvest off of these. We're going to give them a nice fertilizing right now and then water them as well. And that should gear them up to start putting some more growth into the actual vegetables and roots over here as they grow. To me, the coolest part about these fall beds is that this is the 3rd time that we've planted different seasoned vegetables out of them. So the very first season we did beets, radishes, kohlrabi, turnips, all that kind of stuff, all of the cold weather crops. And then we put in a summer crop of beans and okra. So we had those all growing, and then we harvested all of them except for the okra, which we're saving for seeds. And then we planted our next crop. So it's full rotations, not to mention in between growing the root vegetables, the cold weather crops, we succession planted those. So we got about 4 or 5 plantings of those springtime vegetables as well. All this goes to say, if you're not utilizing your garden beds to their full potential, you're potentially wasting a lot of space and production. You can grow out of these garden beds, not just raised garden bed, any garden bed you have, anywhere you're growing, utilize your growing periods for as much, whatever you got in you, try and do that because you might be amazed how much you can grow in such a small area. Just with these 9 raised beds that we've got here, we're able to cut our produce costs down by about 80% during the summer months, and then we've got stuff to store, put in the freezer, ferment, pickle, whatever you want to do with it. There is so much you can do with a small garden. So let's go and show you some more stories. We're going to tell you some cool stuff that we learned throughout this year in 2022 in the backyard garden. And this is how we prepare our garden beds for the winter. In case you are wondering, what we do is just take all of the leaves, stems, whatever it might be that we don't harvest for ourselves at the end of the season, and we'll just lay it on top of the soil so it breaks down and decomposes for all of the bacteria, microorganisms, and fungi in our soil. We grew just about every vegetable you can imagine here, but one I will not grow again is the Romanesco broccoli. Way too big, took way too long to grow. Probably will not do it again. All of our peppers did great. Some beautiful pepper plants. Our tomatoes this year, whew, they were out of this world. We use our good old single stem method to grow these, and I tell you what, we got more tomatoes than we even know what to do with. Very happy with them. All of the varieties that we grew did incredibly well. We actually got a 2-pound mortgage lifter off of this plant right here this year. So that was great to see in the garden, my first 2-pounder. And between the tomatoes, we grew the celery right here. That's ready to harvest. First time growing celery, it did really well. Besides all the other usual vegetable stuff that we've got going here, one cool thing that I did this year was clone a tomato plant by just sticking a little sucker into the ground. Right here, you can see it. I haven't taken care of it whatsoever. This was the sucker that we threw into the ground, and also this one right here, and we got tomatoes off of them. Look at that. Whole bunch here, and more that would have continued to grow if it was early enough in the season. So next year, whenever I prune off any suckers that have gotten away from me and are pretty big in size, I'm gonna stick them down into one of my garden beds to grow some more tomatoes out of them. So very cool. Happy that that worked. This entire space is brand new. We're turning this into our annual flower area. What we did is we got dump trucks of wood chips piled out here about 6 to 8 inches deep, spread it throughout this whole area. Then we used some cedar logs as the border. All we did was dump the wood chips down, and then when we planted our dahlias, since it's the very first year of these wood chips, they're not very well broken down. So what we did was we put in a little bit of potting soil along with them when we planted them. Everything is doing so incredibly well. We got some beautiful dahlia flowers this year. Very excited for our first season of growing them here on this property. Some beautiful flowers. I love it. They're very fun to grow, easy to propagate, easy to store over winter as well. So dahlias are something that we're gonna start getting more and more into. This is all included in this area. As you can see, we've got a lot of weeds, not worried about it. It's late in the season. They're not gonna seed. They're gonna get tilled up in the wood chips early spring and get turned into compost for next year's garden. All of our sunflowers have seen the best of the show for the season. They are starting to tip on over. We're gonna harvest some of these for seeds. Others we're just going to keep out for the birds and stuff. We gotta show off the biggest head that we got all season. We'll have some pictures of that on Facebook, most likely. And to give you a final picture, we've got a couple of curly willows and weeping willows right here that are gonna provide kind of a border between our chicken area, which is gonna be planted with flowers, and we're gonna make a little walkway here and keep that separated from our flower area. So this space will continually be worked on over the next couple of years to make it a gorgeous area to hang out and spend some time in. For the very first year, I could not be happier with it. Our weeping willow, doing good as always. Gonna give this thing a nice heavy prune back later this season. Early winter, maybe even late winter, early spring we'll do it. So stay tuned for a video on that. Working our way around the garden now. This is our little herb area. What I did last year was just let everything go to seed. I didn't want to plant anything in here to see what would come back, what would grow, what we could grow, you know, perennially year after year. And we got a couple of winners. This lavender hyssop. We have an apple mint down there that's growing back. We actually had some nasturtium self-seed. And then we've got some, I believe this is a sage right here. Yeah, sage. So very cool. I'm getting more into trying to let plants self-seed and see what comes back, including our vegetables, believe it or not. So here's my next big experiment with vegetables. Here's my next big experiment with vegetables. That is a self-seeding trial. I found out this year that I had several bush beans and pole beans, as well as many different varieties of tomato plants that self-seeded and grew and produced vegetables for us. So what this means is now I'm just gonna leave some of these fruit ripen on the vine, as well as these beans over here. I'm gonna let these seeds drop on the ground. So what we're trying to see is just how many plants we can get to sprout and grow without us doing any work. If potentially this is a way we can plant and grow these varieties every single year. Because ultimately, if we can reduce the amount of time that we have to put into this garden here, the better it's gonna be for our family and better for you, because you can duplicate this yourself as well. And for those of you who are curious, our willow log propagations are doing very well, and I will be making a dedicated video of these guys in maybe a week or so. We'll see. We just did a harvesting video on our elderberries a little bit ago. You should check that out if it interests you. And right next to them is our basket weaving willows. They're about 6 feet tall right now. We're gonna pollard these at the end of the season or early next season, cut them way back and flush out a new set of growth. We should see more and more branches come out of these, and they'll turn into a bush with no time. I think next year you're going to be amazed at how much growth we get out of these. They are very prolific plants. Love them. Love growing willows. Ooh, and over here, these are bananas, hardy bananas. I hope they survive the winter. I'm going to do my best to insulate them and keep them nice and warm and cozy, but these next year, if we can keep them in the ground and they survive, they should be about 10 feet tall next season. They grow very, very fast. Also another plant I'm excited for. Now take a look at the front flower garden, which we've been developing over the past 2 years. We essentially started with nothing, so very happy with how it's grown so far. We're just gonna take a look at some of these plants here and highlight my favorite ones. We propagated lavender on that little one right there is propagated, doing very well. This one was propagated here on the channel also. Then I am very excited for all of our caladiums that have bloomed. They're thriving. They took forever to pop up, but now finally, like now that it's the end of the season, they're doing well. Really pretty. Our sedums are starting to spread throughout the garden. Coral bells there, and sempervivum is expanding and growing, which is exactly what we want it to do. We're trying to fill in like this area right here, and then some of this stuff with the ground cover crops, just like those. So we are making progress here in this front flower garden. Every single year we're adding about 5 or 6 plants until we fill it up. We also have some varieties that are self-seeding and spreading too, so it is looking well. And again, here's another one of our willows that we propagated. Looking fine. Our apple trees that are out front, we've been pruning throughout the season. Yes, you can prune your apple trees all year round. You just want to prune in different ways. So keep that in mind when pruning. I'm not going to talk too much more about this. So summer months, it's small, little 7-8 inch cuttings here and there right off the tips. But during the winter months, that's when we really get in here and start to figure out how we want to shape the tree and how we want it to grow over the next 5, 10, 15 years. I almost had no hope for this tree at the beginning of the season because it was growing so vertically. But now throughout pruning, we've been kind of able to developed some leaders, some lateral growth here that are shooting off to the sides, and I think it will, over time, with the weight of the apples, grow down into like that vase shape that we're trying to achieve. Where with this one, you can see very well established without us doing a whole lot of work. We've got this one here, that one there, none of which are going straight up. They're all opening to the outside of the tree. That is ideal. That's what we're really looking for. One of the last things to see is our front flower bed that we've got here. This is the first year that we grew these Cafe au lait dahlias. They are beautiful, excited to store them and see just how good they do next year. So mediocre growth this year. I think they'll be even better next though. We're also going to remediate the soil a little bit, add in some because I think it's settled over time. And we use a hugelkultur method on this bed. So there's logs and branches in the bottom of it. So it's all kind of settling in. So we've got to add a little bit of soil. Happy with the dahlias, happy with the calla lilies that we had here. See now, obviously the end of the season. But as far as our gladiolas go, kind of a different story. They just didn't do too well. We didn't get very good flowers off of them either. I'm gonna store them for the winter, try and grow them next year. Maybe it was just an off year, bad weather patterns for their growth. But I love gladiolas though. I hope they do well. I speak to this pretty frequently on the channel. Your garden doesn't have to be perfect. You're never gonna have a perfect year no matter what you're growing or how long you've been growing it. And that's okay. That is totally fine. As long as we're developing our skills, we're learning, we're growing, we're sharing our gardening experiences with others to help build the community. That's what this is all about, and that's what we've implemented here on the channel and in our gardens. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I am stoked that the garden did so well this year. It was incredible. If you want to see more pictures of our harvest and our plants, find us on Facebook, Expedition Homestead. You get more of the behind the scenes look at what we do here. All of the photos and stuff go right on Facebook. So check us out there to see more of our story, as well as our website, expeditionhomestead.org. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.